Hey guys, welcome back. In this episode we ditched New Zealand spearfishing and head across the ditch to Cairns, Australia to spear the Great Barrier Reef. We started our trip by exploring a bit of Cairns and its animals. We saw some wallabies, this huge croc, a wild cassowary that is not behind a fence, and some of the indigenous activities like spear throwing and boomerang throwing.
Bye-bye! Three species of them though.
But we went to the Daintree forest as well, and saw some wild crocodiles. I licked an ant that tasted like a very intense lemon.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is.
And then we took a charter out to the Great Barrier Reef to do some exploring. As soon as we jumped in the water, it was like, wow, clear and warm and so much life and so much colour. It was really cool. We did an outer reef snorkeling trip. This here is a large Maori rice. It's really cool, he's huge. Then we were visited by a couple sharks. I think this one is a black tip, if I'm not wrong. And this is just so different terrain compared to New Zealand. Like New Zealand we have weed and cold water, and this is bright colourful corals and warm water. We even found some clownfish, and yeah, I could talk endlessly about what we saw and the cool things. This one's a sea cucumber, but yeah, just a really cool snorkeling trip out to the reef, and then we'll get on to some spearing. We started the trip with Terry. So Terry's a local here in Cairns, and talked to him and he offered to take me out. And then also met up with one of my work colleagues, Brad, who's here, and we both linked up and got out on the reef on Terry's boat, which was really kind of him. And yeah, we were both pretty stoked to see this fizz and to see the coral and stuff. We were absolutely frothing to do some overseas spearing. After about 45 minutes of travel, we arrived at a shallower part of the reef where we were looking for bommies to find crayfish. I got the drone up and had a fly around, and yeah, the fizz was just awesome, really clear. Anyway, we found a couple of bommies, and Terry was dropping us off at different bommies to try and find crays. Found this pufferfish in this hole, which was a bit strange. It was like a leopard. And then just keep searching under all these cracks and little reefs. I searched for crayfish in New Zealand, and we're sort of looking for guts and cracks under weed and stuff, so it was a little bit different, but you could understand where they would be. In New Zealand we have the red crayfish and the packhorse crayfish, which is like a green crayfish, and over here I'm pretty sure we're looking for hornet crays. Under here I found that there was a unicorn fish stuck underneath this rock. Bit of a weird position. I don't know what these Aussie fish like to do, but that's a strange fish in New Zealand. It likes to park under a rock. So I got Brad to come over and it's just like, hey, come look at this fish, man. He's stuck.
see? Where? And underneath? Yeah.
Brad didn't see it, so I went down to check. And he's still in there, but he pushed himself further underneath the rock, which is a little bit strange. So I couldn't help him. He's just an Australian rock tunnelling unicorn fish. We kept coming around these bommies and trying to look for crays, but we're also seeing a couple tuskfish. Yeah, it was just cool to explore bommies and reefs and stuff. It was just very different than what we have in New Zealand.
That sounds good.
We jumped back on the boat and we're going to go try some deeper spots further out on the reef. This was my first drop on the deeper stuff and just dropped down to the bottom of the shelf. I kind of knew like what not to shoot, but not so much of what to shoot. There was a lot to shoot that's good eating, but coming between countries it's kind of hard. I knew mackerel and emperor and those sort of things, but I just tried the same sort of techniques as snapper, sit on the sand and just wait for something that was interested. And this fish came in, looked pretty interested, so I turned around and put a shot into it. It was acting just like a snapper, so I knew like this had to be a good fish. Got it to the surface and it definitely looked like some type of emperor.
What's this thing? Oh yeah? It was acting like it. I was like, you're like a snapper. You must be good.
Turned out to be a spangled emperor,
So that's a pretty good
which is
fish.
apparently not a very easy fish to shoot.
Emperor?
So Terry knew that I was an actual Spearo now. And then we bumped into what I think was a box jellyfish, one of the most poisonous jellyfish in the world. So that was a quick realization that you kind of got to watch out. Just kept trying to do the same things, dropping down shelves, flicking up some sand, and trying to see if any fish would be attracted by that. We ended up moving on, and Terry dropped me off on another bommy that was in a little bit deeper water. I loaded up the spear gun and headed into the current, trying to get on the front of the pin. And first thing you notice is there's heaps of bait, which is typically a really good sign. So I was just spearing like I was hunting kingfish, and going to the front, sitting on the front of the pin in the current with the bait, and we'll just see if anything was going to come in. Did some scratching and a little bit of grunting to see what would come in, hoping that maybe there would be a mackerel. And sure enough, one comes in. He was a bit flighty, but then he came back in and I was able to connect that shot. And just the immense power of this fish. I thought I could hold on to that gun, but he just ripped it right out of my hand. This wasn't a big mackerel either. Just let it run, and I wasn't sure what the shot was, so...
Yeah.
For its size, it still had a really good pull, and that just initial run is just nothing like I had shot before. Shot a lot of kingfish, and they're a steady, powerful weight, but this fish just absolutely took off, and then it kind of died off. It gave up.
Spanish.
started to pull this fish in and realised that it was a gut shot and that I would need a second shot. Good thing I had my trusty New Zealand buddy Brad to come jump in and put a second shot in for me.
It's a bad shot. Brad's gonna get it, I think.
And Brad goes down to put that shot in. I try hold the fish as steady as possible. And Brad misses, so
Brad
thanks,
missed.
mate.
Brad missed. I need another shot. It's in the gut.
I gotta get the Aussie to do it.
Yeah, I'm letting him.
And Terry goes down, rightfully puts a second shot in. Had a couple sharks come in when we were dealing with the fish, just small ones. And this is when I found out that this wasn't a Spanish mackerel, it was actually what they call a sharky mackerel. To me they looked very, very similar underwater, both very silvery.
What's the difference?
But once you get them to service, you see that leopard pattern on the back, and they're yellow, not a silver and blue.
I can see that now when he's on the surface, but he looked like real silver.
We moved to a different part of the reef, and I thought I found my first tusk fish. Blue, large scales. And then very shortly after I shot it, I was like, this looks like a pretty weird looking tusk fish.
Is that a tusky?
Tried to ask Brad what he thought it was.
Is that not a tusky? Fuck.
So that wasn't a very confident answer, and that was a definite confirmation that was not a tusk fish. Anyway, that went in the bin and it did get eaten. So, and then Brad called me over for a second shot on this nice sized trevally. In New Zealand we get a silver trevally, and this one's a golden trevally, which is quite a lot larger. He's being a little bit hard to shoot, so I didn't want to embarrass myself like Brad and miss, so I decided to leave it. Brad gave me a bit of shit for that, but it's not as bad as missing it. Anyway, we got the fish in. I still wanted to shoot it, but decided I could probably just stab it. So I stabbed it in the head, and that worked really well.
Does the job.
I'll tell you what, that's a pretty efficient way to put in a second shot. I found this sort of pinnacle and had this turtle on it, which is pretty cool. Like this is a good sized turtle. I've never seen one like this. I've seen a couple in New Zealand, but they're quite small, like maybe 40 centimetres in length, and that one was almost probably a metre. And I found this really good shelf, had current pushing up over the top of it, and had some moo sitting down on the front of it. Moo's, I guess, the Hawaiian term, but they're really hard fish to shoot. They were reacting to any micro movement that I was doing. Like moving my gun, they were all kind of freaking out at it. And unfortunately I couldn't quite get the shot away. They were just a bit too smart. Then we moved on again. Terry had lots of different spots, so on the way we found some dolphins, which was pretty cool. And they started bow riding and whatnot. Brad and I got dropped on another place of the reef to go look for some mackerel, and just out of my eye I caught this mackerel coming in, so I took a dive. I drilled it into myself that what a Spanish looked like, silver with stripes, and I was 100% sure that this was a Spanish mackerel, and it just took off. That immediate power is so cool. But he tied out, and I was able to slowly bring him in. I called out to the boat because we'd seen some sharks earlier, again, another pretty shit shot in the gut. So, but it was going to hold, so I didn't need a second shot. And it was probably about now that I should have realised that this was also a sharky, not a Spanish. But you turn it on its side there and it goes silver and it's blue and it looks like it kind of has stripes. These things have gnarly teeth, and like he's shaking his head around. You wouldn't want to cop that to the side of the arm. It would do some damage.
That's a Spanish.
It's a fucking Spanish.
And for future reference, that is what a sharky looks like. By now I'd already copped some more shit from Terry for shooting not only one sharky but two. So now I was off to go and shoot, hopefully, an actual Spanish mackerel, and this is an actual Spanish mackerel. And there we go. I shot it in like the bottom of the stomach, and it instantly ripped. And that was my chance. Terry wasn't going to believe me, but yeah, we spent another 45 minutes on this reef with heaps of current. We were probably having to swim 2 to 3 knots to keep up with the current. There were sharks buzzing through, and the group, I think, shot maybe two Spanish mackerel on this reef. And then we all jumped back in the boat. We had a pretty good bin. My Spangled Emperor, my 2 sharkies, we had a couple of Spanishes on the boat, coral trout, tuskies. We had a really good mixed bag of Great Barrier Reef fish. We were blasting back at like 40 knots. Terry's Haynes Hunter with 200s, it was quick boat. And yeah, that was just a really, really cool trip out to the reef, experiencing some overseas spearing. So thanks Terry a lot for taking me and Brad out and giving us some Aussie humour and hospitality. We had a really good time. And that brings us to the end of this episode, Spearfishing the Great Barrier Reef. In the next episode we head to the very far north of New Zealand to hunt some monster snapper, so make sure you stick around for that. Cheers.